The dog wouldn't stop barking. It was just after sunrise, fog hanging low over the frostbitten grass of Hollow Creek Cemetery. Deputy Marshal tried to drag Rex away, but the K-9 planted himself beside an unmarked grave, growling like something beneath the earth was still breathing. That patch of dirt hadn't been disturbed in years, or so everyone thought. By noon, they brought in a shovel. By sundown, half the town was watching in silence as the truth was unearthed. And when they saw what had been buried there, no one spoke again. If stories like this stay with you, stick around. The cemetery sat on the southern ridge of Hollow Creek, tucked between wind-split pine trees and the rust-colored bluff that locals called Devil's Spine. It wasn't marked on tourist maps, and most people in town had stopped burying folks there after the new cemetery opened by the highway. Still, the older families, Stetsons, Faulkners, Grady Line, they remembered the graves carved before there were paved roads or funeral homes. It was a gray morning in October when Deputy Clay Marshall pulled into the lot with his K-9 partner, Rex. Clay was 38, divorced, and had spent the last 5 years nursing a bitter silence between himself and the rest of the world. He lived alone on the edge of Millertown with no pictures on the walls. Just him and the dog. He didn't smile much, but Rex always had a pat on the head, even when Clay was bone-tired. They weren't there on official business. Clay liked walking Rex through the old grounds before sunrise. The dog needed to move, and Clay needed a place where he wouldn't run into someone asking questions about his ex-wife or the daughter he didn't see anymore. Rex had never reacted like this before. They were halfway down the gravel path, past a row of tilted iron crosses, when the dog stopped dead, hackles up, ears pinned, then barking. Not the excited kind, not playful. This was something else. Warning, threat, panic. Rex, Clay said sharp and low. Heel. The dog didn't move. Instead, he pulled away from the leash and stalked toward a sunken patch of earth near the tree line. No marker, just wild grass and a few chunks of stone covered in moss. He circled, then placed his paws firmly at the edge of the grave. Growled. Clay knelt. What is it, boy? The air smelled wrong. Not rot. Something sweeter, faint, like decayed perfume. He touched the ground. It was soft, damp, not like the rest of the cemetery. This patch had been dug up, and recently. He stood up and scanned the horizon. Empty hills. No vehicles. No fresh tire tracks. Just a whisper of wind through pine needles and the steady drumbeat of Rex's barking. By 8 a.m., Clay had made the call. Sheriff Boone arrived in his pickup, a cigarette hanging from his lip, 60, red-faced, and always one coffee short of tolerable. You better not be wasting my time, Marshal. Dog found something. Ground's loose. No grave marker. Boone knelt and pressed his fingers into the dirt. Feels like somebody didn't want this found. An hour later, the coroner's van pulled up. 2 deputies stood by with shovels, exchanging nervous glances. Clay didn't move. He just watched. They started digging at 10:15. By 10:40, the shovel hit wood. At 11:05, they opened the box. Inside wasn't what anyone expected. Not bones. Not a full corpse. It was half a skeleton. Female. Legs and lower torso only. No arms. No skull. No clothes. Except for a strip of red fabric, like a torn scarf, knotted tight around the pelvis. Dr. Mendez, the county coroner, turned to Clay. This wasn't a proper burial. This was a message. Sheriff Boone wiped sweat from his brow. Get it to the lab. Quietly. No press. Not yet. Clay's stomach turned. He felt something heavy settle in his chest. He didn't know why, but he'd seen that red fabric before. He just couldn't remember where. By dusk, Clay was back in his truck, staring out across the cemetery. Rex curled beside him. He should have gone home. But something kept him there. That grave had no name, but the dog knew. Somehow, the dog had known. He pulled out his phone, tapped open his old files. Cold cases from 20 years ago. Missing persons. Women. Assaults. The digital folder was labeled Anna. His ex-wife had hated that he kept digging into it, said it ruined every part of him. But he couldn't let go. The screen flicked through names. Janet Fuller, 2006. Teresa Holt, 2011. Callie Whitebird, 1997. And then Kara Dalton, age 17. Missing since 2004. He stared at her photo. Blonde hair, sharp eyes, a high school senior from Elk Point. Last seen leaving a church lock-in on a Friday night. She was wearing a red scarf. He opened the case notes. Nothing recovered. No leads. Only witness was a boy named Cole Jensen, her boyfriend. Clay whispered to himself, red scarf. Rex lifted his head. Clay tapped into the old witness statements. Something didn't line up. Cole had told police Carol walked off after an argument, but his story was vague, defensive, and he refused to speak further after the second interview. No charges were ever filed. Case went cold. But the Dalton girls' parents had moved away 6 months later. Rumor was they couldn't handle staying in a town where everyone treated their daughter like a memory. Clay pulled up Cole Jensen's current info. Still lived nearby. Worked at the mill. Married, no kids. Known to keep to himself. He started the engine. Cole's house was a single-story brick box with a cluttered yard and wind chimes made of old spoons. He answered the door after the second knock. Thinner than his photos. Eyes red, like he hadn't slept in years. "Deputy Marshal," he said, "we found something today." Clay paused. "In the old cemetery." Cole blinked. "What?" "An unmarked grave. Bones. Red scarf." Color drained from the man's face. "We think it's Kara," Clay said quietly. Cole stared at the floor. "She left. She told me she was done with this town." "You ever lie to protect someone, Cole?" "I didn't touch her." Clay nodded slowly. "That's not what I asked." Cole shut the door without another word. That night, Clay couldn't sleep. He sat in the dark with a dog at his feet, rereading Kara Dalton's file until the words blurred. Her parents were unreachable. Her friends had moved on. No new evidence. Just bones in a box and a memory buried too deep for comfort. At 2:12 a.m., Rex started barking again. This time at the window. Clay stepped outside, flashlight in hand. In the dew-covered grass was something that hadn't been there before. A Polaroid photo, wet and curling at the edges. In it, a man blurry and half-lit by firelight, standing over a woman lying in a field. The woman wore a red scarf. Her face was turned. Clay flipped it over. On the back, in faded ink, "Ask Boone what happened in '04. He stood there, breath caught in his chest, the dog pressing against his leg like a living anchor. Ask Boone, his boss, his friend, the man who trained him, the man who had arrived too quickly today, who had told him to keep the discovery quiet, who had insisted on no press. Clay felt something crack open in his chest. The dog knew, the ground knew, and now Clay did too. Something had been buried long before the body, and it wasn't just the truth. The next morning, Clay sat in his cruiser outside the sheriff's office, gripping the wheel like it might anchor him to something solid. The Polaroid was on the passenger seat, beside Rex. Clay hadn't slept. The image kept replaying in his head. Red scarf, dark figure, a woman crumpled in the grass. And those words on the back. Ask Boone what happened in '04. Boone had been sheriff back then, too. Just newly elected. Clay was 20 at the time, fresh out of the academy, still working night patrol and pulling bodies out of ditches. He didn't remember Kara Dalton's case personally, just the way the town went quiet for weeks. How people looked at her boyfriend sideways, but said nothing out loud. Clay took a breath and walked inside. The sheriff's office hadn't changed in years. Same scratch with paneling. Same faded photo of Boone shaking hands with the mayor during a 4th of July parade. The coffee still tasted like river mud, and the air carried that same mix of sweat and dust and something else. Unspoken things. Boone looked up from his desk. "Something on your mind, Marshal?" Clay held up the Polaroid. "Found this in my yard last night." Boone studied the photo for a long time, then exhaled through his nose. "That real?" Clay didn't answer. Boone leaned back in his chair, eyes going dark. "This town's full of ghosts. Every inch of it's haunted by something we didn't do. Or didn't do right. What happened to Kara Dalton? Clay asked. Boone didn't flinch. You were lead on the case, Clay said. You questioned the boyfriend. You closed it cold. Boone sighed. You ever try to do the right thing and realize you're 5 minutes too late? That's not an answer. Boone stood slowly, walked to the window. Her father came to me the night she went missing. Said she hadn't come home after the church lock-in. She'd been seeing that boy, Cole. I sent deputies out. We found her backpack in the woods behind the church, but no sign of her. No blood. No witnesses. Clay stepped closer. Why close it? Boone turned, his face worn thin. Because someone higher up told me to. State guy. Said there'd been threats. That Kara's father. He owed people money. Bad people. Word was she might have been taken to settle a debt. That was never in the file. No, it wasn't. Clay stared. You covered it. I protected her family. That's not the same thing. Clay's jaw tensed. You buried a lead. You let Cole walk free. You let her rot in that grave. Boone's voice turned quiet. I didn't know she was there. But you knew she was dead. The older man looked away. We all knew. But back then, justice didn't come clean. It came with a price. Clay left the office without another word. Outside, the sky was thick with clouds and the air held a metallic taste. Something was coming, whether or worse. Clay didn't believe in signs, but Rex kept pacing the back seat like he knew what was ahead. Clay drove to the mill. Cole Jensen was just finishing his shift, hands stained with grease, face drawn like a stretched canvas. He saw Clay and froze. We need to talk, Clay said. I already told you. Clay held up the photo. Cole swallowed hard. Who took this? Clay asked. I don't know, but it's real. Cole leaned against his truck. I didn't kill her. Then who did? Cole looked off toward the tree line behind the mill, where the woods grew thick and dark. You ever hear the Bone Field? Clay's brows furrowed. What? North of Devil's Spine, Cole said. Old patch of land. Locals say the ground there doesn't hold things right. Stuff goes missing. Animals. People sometimes. You saying she was taken there? I'm saying that's where I last saw her alive. Clay stepped forward. Why didn't you tell anyone? Because the sheriff said not to. He said if I talked, bad things would happen. To me. To my parents. Said it wasn't safe. Clay's hands curled into fists. Cole looked broken. We went out there after the lock-in, just to be alone. She said she wanted to tell me something. That someone had been following her, watching her house. She was scared. And then she ran into the woods. I chased her, but I lost her. And then he broke off. Then I saw someone, a man in a brown coat, standing between the trees. I called out, but he didn't move, just stared at me. You get a look at his face? Cole shook his head. He had a hat, low brim. Then he turned and vanished. And you just left? I waited. Hours. I went back to the road and called her house. Her dad answered. Said not to worry. That Kara was home. Cole's voice cracked. But she wasn't. Clay stared at him. Who was pretending she was? I don't know. But the next morning, I got a visit from Boone. He told me the case was closed. Told me to keep my mouth shut. That night, Clay drove north, past the town limits, past the old quarry, past the last gas station where the lights flickered like warning signs. He followed a gravel path that hadn't seen traffic in years. His tires crunched over stones as the trees closed in around him. Rex started growling again. The Bone Field was just a clearing. No markers. No fence. Just a flat stretch of dirt and weeds, surrounded by thick pines and silence. Clay stepped out with his flashlight. Stay close, he told Rex. The ground felt strange beneath his boots. Soft, springy, like walking on lungs. He moved in slow circles. Listening, watching. Then his beam caught something. A wooden post. Half buried. He knelt and brushed away dirt. Nailed to the post was a strip of red fabric. And a photograph. Another Polaroid. This one showed a different girl. Young. brunette, wide-eyed and smiling. And in the background, barely visible, was the same man in the brown coat. Clay's breath froze. He flipped it over. Written on the back, next is Emily. 3 days. Emily. That name. Clay's mind spun. He knew that name. Emily Boone, the sheriff's granddaughter. Clay slammed the cruiser into gear and tore down the gravel road, tires spitting rocks as Rex barked wildly in the back seat. He drove like the world depended on it, because maybe it did. Back in town, the Boone house sat on a hilltop, porch light glowing against the dusk. Clay jumped out hard hammering. Boone answered the door before Clay could knock. "You lied," Clay said. "You knew about all of it. The field, the threats, the photos." Boone didn't argue. Clay shoved the latest Polaroid at him. "She's next. Emily." Boone took the photo and sat down like his knees had given out. "I tried to stop it," he said. "Back then, I tried, but it was already bigger than me." "What is it?" Boone looked up, eyes filled with something ancient and hollow. "You think this town's sick by accident? Think these disappearances were random? Someone's been feeding that ground for generations. Our fathers, their fathers. Feeding? It's not a man, Clay. It never was." Clay recoiled. Boone nodded. "It takes what it's given, and it gives something back. Crops, peace, safety, but only if it's fed." Clay stepped back. "You're telling me." Boone cut him off. "I stopped them 20 years ago. Tried to break the line. But they punished me. They took Kara because I said no. And now you're letting it start again? I don't have a choice. They'll take Emily unless someone takes her place." Clay's voice dropped. "You're going to let them?" Boone's face twisted. "I'm tired, Clay." Clay reached for his weapon. But Boone moved faster. He pulled a revolver from the drawer. "I never wanted this," he said softly. Then he pointed at his own head and pulled the trigger. Silence rang like a scream in Clay's ears. Rex howled beside him. Emily was still in danger. The clock was still ticking. And now the only man who knew the full truth was gone. Clay turned and ran. He knew where he had to go next. Back to the bone field. Back to whatever waited beneath the earth. Because he wasn't going to lose another girl. Not again. Not to this. The night wind had teeth. It howled to the pine trees as Clay Marshall sped back toward the bone field. Rex tense in the seat beside him, ears pinned, low growl constant. The gravel road shook the cruiser's frame, but Clay didn't slow down. Emily Boone was out there. Somewhere. And if the note was right, if the photo was a warning, he had less than 48 hours to stop whatever had taken Kara, whatever had buried her in pieces. At 1:12 a.m., he pulled into the clearing. The bone field looked different now, more awake. The trees leaned inward, their limbs twisted like bent arms. Moonlight poured across the open ground in long, silvery scars. Clay opened the door. The earth smelled rich, like turned soil and something older, something dead. Rex leapt out beside him and bolted ahead, nose to the dirt. "Rex, stay close." Clay muttered, hand on his sidearm. The dog stopped at the post where they found the second Polaroid. He barked once, sharply, then began pawing at the ground. Clay knelt and helped dig. The dirt was loose. And then, just inches beneath the surface, they uncovered a box. Wooden, rotten, the size of a shoebox. Inside, a locket, a note, and a third photograph. The photo was newer. A teenage girl in a green hoodie standing at a gas station, looking straight at the camera like she'd been caught mid-blink. Emily Boone. The note was printed in clean block letters. "She walks the trail at sunrise. So did Kara." Clay stood, hard hammering. He knew that trail, the eastern ridge near Clearwater Creek. Locals hiked it at dawn to catch the mist rolling over the water. He called it in. "This is Deputy Marshall. Possible target spotted. I'm en route to the Clearwater Ridge trailhead. Request immediate backup." No answer. "Dispatch." Nothing. Just static. He tossed the radio down. "Let's go," he told Rex. They drove through winding back roads in total silence. The fog was thicker now, turning everything into a dream. Clay didn't want to stay inside. At 5:08 a.m., they reached the trailhead, and there she was, Emily Boone, green hoodie, earbuds in, walking toward the edge of the woods. Unaware, Clay jumped from the car. "Emily." She flinched, pulled her earbuds out. "Deputy Marshal? You need to come with me. Now." "What's going on?" "There's no time." He glanced over his shoulder. "Someone wants you gone." Her face paled. "Gone? What are you talking about?" Then a sound from the woods. A voice, low and human, whispering her name. "Emily." Rex bared his teeth. Clay turned, gun drawn. The trees ahead swayed in a wind that hadn't touched the air around them. The fog thickened, forming shapes, limbs, hands, faces that flickered in and out of sight. And then he saw it. A figure, not a man, not an animal. Tall, wrong, wrapped in what looked like burlap and bone. Antlers curved out its skull like branches. Its face was smeared with mud, or ash, or worse. And where its eyes should have been, nothing. Just black, weeping holes. Emily screamed. Clay fired. The shot echoed like thunder, but the thing didn't move. It tilted its head, slow, curious, and then it opened its mouth. A rush of wind hit them. Voices. Screams. Clay grabbed Emily and ran. Rex snarled and followed. Back to the cruiser. Back to the road. The figure didn't chase. But the voices did. At the station, no one answered the door. Inside, phones were dead. Lights flickered. Files had been ransacked. Boone's office destroyed. And the Polaroids, everyone Clay had locked away, were gone. He turned to Emily. "You're staying with me." She looked like she wanted to cry. "What the hell was that?" "I don't know, but I think it's been here longer than any of us." That night, Clay didn't sleep. He sat on his porch with his shotgun across his knees. Emily slept inside. Rex lay at the foot of the steps, ears twitching at every sound. At midnight, Clay heard something in the woods. Footsteps. Not many. Just one. He stood, raised a gun. A man walked into the clearing. Older, thin, carried a lantern. Clay recognized him. Eli Dalton, Kara's father. But he'd moved away. Years ago. Clay stepped forward. "What the hell are you doing here?" Eli's eyes were hollow. "You stirred it." "What is it?" Eli lifted the lantern, his hands shaking. "We tried to stop it in '04. We made noise. Your sheriff tried too. But Hollow Creek's been fed for generations. It don't like starvation. You knew your daughter was dead. I knew they would make her disappear. It was the only way to stop it from taking more. She was 17. Eli looked away. "And now it's hungry again." Clay's voice broke. "You let it happen." "I tried to make peace." Clay pointed the shotgun. "Go home, Mr. Dalton. You're not welcome here." Eli didn't flinch. "It's not me you should fear." Then he turned and walked back into the trees. 2 days later, the lab results came back. The bones in the grave matched Kara Dalton. The red scarf was hers. And the DNA found beneath her fingernails? Not Cole Jensen. Not a stranger. Sheriff Boone. Clay sat alone with the files, staring at the test results. The betrayal gutted him. Boone had told him lies for years, guided him, protected him, and buried the truth with a girl. Had it been a sacrifice? A mistake? He would never know. The town stayed quiet about it all. No charges. No press. Kara got a headstone. Emily moved away. Cole disappeared one night and never came back. And Clay? He stayed. Every night. He walked Rex to the edge of the bone field and waited. Sometimes he heard voices. Sometimes he didn't. But he knew now. Some places remember. And some graves never stay buried.